Chapter 970. Hey, Edward here. Jiang Hai waved his hand and called out to Edward Anderson, who had just walked down from the dock. Because there was a copy last night, Jiang Hai got up early in the morning, because Edward Anderson and the others would come back at this time. The fish were all caught at night, and then they would be transported to the dock in Boston before dawn. Then the people from the Tinglong Company and the high-end restaurants in Boston would gather there. The people from Walmart sent by Prawalton would tell the people from the Tinglong Company what fish they wanted today and where they were going to send it. Then the people from the Tinglong Company would transport the seafood, either chilled or frozen, directly to the airport, and then fly straight to the place they agreed on, where the people from the Walmart Company would be waiting to pick up the goods. Edward Anderson and the others would return directly, and the money would be directly transferred to Jiang Hai's account. Generally speaking, when they arrived home, it was around 6 o'clock. If it was summer, the sky would be bright, but it was still winter and the sky was not even bright. The sea was covered with fog and only a trace of sunlight could be seen. Don't think that you can see the sunrise often just because you live by the sea all year round. To be honest, it's just like in the mountains. The time you can see the sunrise is very little because whether it's in the sea or in the mountains, the fog is very heavy. Jiang Hai had been here for more than 3 years. The number of sunrises he had seen could not be counted with his hands, but the number of times he had seen them was not too many. Basically, it was good to see the sunrise 1 or 2 days a month. Obviously, today was not such a day. Hey boss, you're up so early. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Edward Anderson also said with a smile, and then said to Jiang Hai. Hearing his words, Jiang Hai also smiled and waved his hand. The two walked into the hut next to the dock. In this day, it was still quite challenging to stay outside, and it was far less comfortable than in a heated room. Some people said that Jiang Hai was a loser. When he was rich, he was a super loser. If Jiang Hai heard these words, he would say, "How can you tell?" Well, in fact, Jiang Hai was a super loser. If he had the slightest ambition and drive, he could also rely on his ability to make more money and have more influence, but he didn't. I asked you to come here for one thing. Do you know where there are many sharks around us? Especially great white sharks, king squid or giant spear squid. After pulling Edward Anderson into the hut, Jiang Hai also went straight to the point and asked him. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Edward Anderson hesitated for a moment. He knew where there were many great white sharks, and he also understood that Jiang Hai had some special abilities, which were far from what he could understand. However, he had to think about the giant spear squid because he really didn't know. I remember that there used to be a lot of great white sharks there, almost 30 or 40 of them, but after some were killed, they have rarely been seen recently, but I can be sure that there must be some there. As for the giant spear squid, king squid, boss, I really don't know. Looking at Jiang Hai, Edward Anderson first said to Jiang Hai. Hearing his words, Jiang Hai also smiled awkwardly. In fact, he also took some things for granted. King squid, giant spear squid, these are all creatures living at the bottom of the sea. They don't need to breathe. Why would they come up? So not many people have seen them. But sperm whales feed on these things. Where there are sperm whales, there should be these creatures. But after thinking about it, Edward Anderson still suggested to Jiang Hai. Hearing his words, Jiang Hai also nodded. Indeed, he can't find these guys, but it doesn't mean that other creatures can't find them, right? At least sperm whales, the natural enemy of squid, should not be a big problem. But where to find sperm whales? Jiang Hai also has some entanglements. Sperm whales are everywhere. As long as the water is not frozen, there will be traces of them. It's not difficult to find them. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Edward Anderson also said with a smile. Hearing what he said, Jiang Hai also nodded. It's a good thing to find them. Now he is afraid of another killer whale invasion, so now that he has determined sharks first, he will look for sharks first. As for the giant spear squid, it depends on the situation. Okay, then let's find a chance to go to Cape Cod soon. After thinking about it, Jiang Hai said to Edward Anderson. Hearing that Jiang Hai was going to Cape Cod, Edward Anderson naturally didn't care and nodded directly. But if they want to go to Cape Cod, Jiang Hai and the others have to hurry because it's going to be March soon. Jiang Hai will start to get busy, and there will be very few people who can leave by then. The fishermen need to start putting in the fry, and the land needs to start planting vegetables, tidying up lawns and grazing cattle. At that time, Jiang Hai will have no extra manpower to accompany him to Cape Cod. Although Azalina and the others can accompany Jiang Hai all the time, there is a problem. You can let Azalina kill people, but how can you let her catch sharks? I'm thinking too much. This matter should be handled by Edward Anderson. After making the reservation with Edward Anderson, Jiang Hai went back and thought about it. He decided to go after Robbins Garcia and the others returned. Why must they wait for him to come back? This time, Jiang Hai was going to take Knerson Peters, Harriman Fells, Bell Lester and Edward Anderson with him. Bell Lester was in charge of safety. Edward Anderson was in charge of finding ways to get fish, while the other two were in charge of catching fish. At this time, it was indeed a little inconvenient to bring some women along. Most importantly, Cape Cod was not far away. It was less than an hour's boat ride from the border of Jiang Hai's fishing ground. Don't forget that Jiang Hai expanded his fishing ground last year. This time Jiang Hai was going to drive his own yacht. It had been a while since his yacht was used. After all, it cost Jiang Hai more than $5 million. It didn't seem good to just leave it there. After Jiang Hai made the decision, he waited for Robbins Garcia and the others to come back. Edward Anderson also had to arrange the rotation of the fishermen during his absence. As for Jiang Hai's women, they didn't care too much. After all, Jiang Hai was only going to Cape Cod, which was very close. Jiang Hai would be back in 2 or 3 days. They wouldn't go so far as to stop Jiang Hai from going for 2 or 3 days. Moreover, according to Jiang Hai, this was a serious matter. Time passed day by day. After another 4 days, Robbins Garcia and the others came back. They went with 2 cows, but when they came back, they only had 1 short-horned cow and a medal. Needless to say, the medal was still a gold medal. In first place, Jiang Hai's beef cow had no problem beating these guys. As for the cow, it also won a gold medal, but its ranking wasn't particularly high. After all, Jiang Hai had only reared it for 1 winter, not more than a year. Even so, Jiang Hai's milk still made a name for itself. Because purely based on the nutritional content, Jiang Hai's milk was worthy of being number 1. The cows in Australia and the cows in the Netherlands were not as nutritious as Jiang Hai's short-horned cow. After all, the grass that the short-horned cow ate was rich in ora. However, perhaps because it had only been reared for a short time, the taste of the milk wasn't very good. Therefore, although it also won a gold medal, its ranking wasn't particularly high. As for the beef cow, it was bound to beat everything. According to Robbins Garcia, they were actually having a smooth sailing. This year's San Antonio Livestock Show also had Japanese people participating. Naturally, they were also suppressed by Jiang Hai. However, those Japanese people were indeed very wretched. At first, they sent people to cause trouble, giving the cows chin and croton beans, but they were directly beaten by Harriman Fells and then thrown into the police station. Later, they also encouraged the American cowboys to ask why these cows were so good. According to them, they were also rearing cows. Why could Jiang Hai's cows be sold at such a high price? It was unfair. However, their plan didn't succeed because the most unfair thing was the beef cow. They didn't see Japan publicizing this method of raising beef. In addition, the United States was a country that paid attention to human rights and democracy, so such a thing didn't happen. Therefore, after dealing with these bastards along the way, they also brought back 2 gold medals for Jiang Hai. After Harriman Fells returned, Jiang Hai let him rest for 2 days. Then he took the 4 people he had chosen to his yacht and drove directly to Cape Cod. These days he was afraid that the killer whales would return. Whether it was the fishery or the land, Jiang Hai was quite interested in them. The most important thing was that he was a person with no sense of security. These days, when his girls flirted with him, he was in a bad mood, let alone doing other things. Harriman Fells also knew that Jiang Hai was anxious, so after 2 days of rest, Jiang Hai waved his hand, and he followed him on the boat without any complaints. Because the place they were going to this time wasn't very far, Jiang Hai and the others prepared everything and had breakfast before leaving. Edward Anderson was the captain. He started the engine and rushed in the direction of Cape Cod. Chapter 971. Fishing, of course, did not refer to a specific place or law enforcement method, but it should be considered an outdoor sport. No one knew exactly how many years fishing had been around, but it was at least tens of thousands of years ago. At least before human civilization, fishing with rods and fishing had already existed. The most famous one was during the last years of the Shang dynasty. There was a man named Lu Wang who used a straight hook to fish. He only caught nobles and generals. Later, this man was given the surname Jiang because of his achievements. He was the famous Jiang Zia. Yes, Jiang Zia's surname was not Jiang, but Lu. Jiang was one of the most ancient and noble surnames in Wuxia, because the origin of this surname was Shennong, the legendary Yan Emperor. The Yan Emperor was born in Jiang River, so he used the river as his surname and named himself Jiang. Of course, this had nothing to do with Jiang Hai, and as far as he knew, it had nothing to do with a certain author. He was just trying to count the number of words. No matter what, fishing was a skill passed down from ancient humans, and there were many people who had fished. Basically, taking China as an example, out of the 1 3 billion people, at least one-third of them had fished before. Children who were born in the countryside or grew up in the countryside must have fished before. Those who were born in the city must have gone to fishing ponds, reservoirs and so on to play, and almost all of them had fished before. Although there were many people who had fished before, there were not many who really liked it. In all of Wuxia, 1 out of 100 people liked fishing, and that was about it. Don't think that this was a small proportion. One had to know that there were 3 billion people in Wuxia, and 1 out of 100 people liked fishing. That was 13 million people. The base of the country was too large and no one could do anything about it. However, if 1 out of 100 people in Wuxia liked fishing, then in the United States, maybe 1,000? Or 3,000? Or 5,000? Well, to be honest, there were not many people in the United States who liked fishing. As everyone knew, although the American government had been trying to change the eating habits of the American people to eliminate the overabundance of Asian carp in the river, the Americans just didn't eat it. No one could do anything about it. First, the United States was like Wuxia. In order to develop, they polluted a large area of land and water. Now that they had developed to a bottleneck, they could no longer develop quickly. They started to treat land pollution, air pollution, and water pollution. However, it had only been 20 to 30 years. Although the results were good now, the current middle-aged people knew how serious the pollution was back then. If they encountered great white sharks, even without Big Fool, they would have to determine the winner first. Therefore, although these great white sharks were powerful in the eyes of Edward Anderson and Jiang Hai, they were not a force to worry about. It was also beneficial to keep this force. Just like now, didn't Jiang Hai come over to recruit them? The news brought back by Edward Anderson was almost the same as what Jiang Hai heard, so the two sat at the bar to study it. After determining the route for tomorrow, they left the bar and returned to the hotel to have a good sleep. Early the next morning, Jiang Hai and Edward Anderson had breakfast, then they boarded the boat and sailed to the side of Jiang Hai's fishing grounds. Today was the day to hunt great white sharks. Maybe God also felt that Jiang Hai would have some harvest today, so there was no fog on the sea. It was a sunny day. Facing the wind and waves, Jiang Hai's boat quickly sailed to the border of his fishing grounds. Their organization was more like a mercenary group. They would listen to whoever paid them more. Because of this, special agents were quite unpopular in the bodyguard world. Prawalton didn't expect that Jiang Hai's people were all agents, and Jiang Hai trusted them so much. Don't doubt the people you use and don't use the people you suspect. This has always been my policy. I believe in them. Hearing Prawalton's words, Jiang Hai also smiled and then lay down beside her. Jiang Hai was telling the truth, he really thought so. Well, with this thing of yours, I'm not afraid that they won't give in. Do you want to warm up first? Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Prawalton didn't want to destroy Jiang Hai's internal unity, so she changed the topic and said with a smile, "Didn't you have enough on the plane?" Looking at Prawalton who had climbed on top of him, Jiang Hai sighed. "How can I have enough with you? Really, we only have a few days. We have to seize every minute and every second." Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Prawalton patted Jiang Hai and said with a smile. Hearing what she said, Jiang Hai didn't talk nonsense. He turned over and pressed her under his body. The war began like this. More than 2 hours later, the clouds dispersed. Jiang Hai and Prawalton, who was obviously full, walked out of the room. "Boss, just as you entered the room, an old man from Japan came to see Prawalton, but the people outside said that you had already rested. You should still be waiting outside now." Hearing the sound of Jiang Hai and Prawalton opening the door, Wallace Shelley and Azalina also walked out of the room and said to Jiang Hai, "It should be Nakamura Tetsuya. Let's go." Hearing Wallace Shelley's words, Prawalton also smiled, and then freely took Jiang Hai and walked outside. When they just came out, they saw an old man and a young man sitting by the pond in the distance drinking tea. Seeing Jiang Hai coming out, the two people immediately stood up. Jiang Hai had seen one of the two people before. It was Nakamura Masa, and the other old man seemed to be in his 60s. He looked 70% similar to Nakamura Masa. It seemed that this was his father, Nakamura Tetsuya, that Prawalton mentioned. "Miss Prawalton, welcome, welcome." Seeing Prawalton, the two people narrowed their eyes and smiled. Nakamura Masa still bowed 90 degrees, and Nakamura Tetsuya was unlikely to bow 90 degrees, but he also took the initiative to bow about 60 degrees. To be honest, Although Jiang Hai didn't like Japanese people very much, maybe no one in the Northeast liked Japanese people. But when he saw an old man bowing to him, he also felt a little awkward, so he thought about it and wanted to return it, but Prawalton saw it first and straightened Jiang Hai's waist. You're an existence of a higher level than them, so just nod your head. Leaning in Jiang Hai's ear, Prawalton said to Jiang Hai. Hearing her words, Jiang Hai also nodded. No matter if others believed it or not, he believed it anyway. As for the other two teachers, although Jiang Hai didn't know their names, he was familiar with them. Now that he saw them in person, although Jiang Hai just said that he wasn't interested in them, the dragon balls in his body were ready to move at this time. We will teach you some skills in this regard and the reaction of a man, so that you can be more comfortable and harmonious in your future life. The 5 teachers came in front of Jiang Hai and helped Jiang Hai take off his clothes. Sasaki Jessica, who was a quarter Italian, also modestly said to the 3 women beside her. Hearing her words, Azalina was a little embarrassed, Wallace Shelley was ready to take note, and Prawalton was watching the situation here without blinking. Soon they took off Jiang Hai's clothes and they also took off their bathrobes. At this time they were also wearing some more sexy clothes inside. Of course, they didn't cover the places that should be covered. Then the teachers knelt in front of Jiang Hai and began the pre-battle preparations that shouldn't be described. The indescribable swallowing and spitting is also a skill. The most indescribable point is where he can't be described, and when he's teasing he can't keep attacking there. Looking at Prawalton, Azalina, and Wallace Shelley in front of her, Sasaki Jessica, who was the best at English, let the others demonstrate. She also took over from time to time and explained to them at the same time. Originally, Jiang Hai had always been very strong in this regard. After all, his physical fitness was there, but this time he couldn't hold on for 15 minutes. After a while, when the battle started, how to use his waist and legs. Not only could his legs clamp Jiang Hai's waist, but he could also put them on his shoulders. He could also use his toes to brush his hair. There was also the coordination of other support personnel. How to attack, how to maximize the battle, which angle was the most comfortable, which angle was the best, which angle was the wrong one. Looking at the 5 teachers in front of her teaching one by one, Azalina was a little embarrassed at first, but later she also watched. As for Prawalton, he had already taken off his clothes and was touching himself while watching the battle in front of him. Usually when Jiang Hai fought against 5 people he could still fight fiercely. But in front of these professional teachers, Jiang Hai was a little embarrassed. In the past, the time was shortened quickly, and he couldn't hold on for more than 20 minutes. But in the eyes of these teachers, it was already amazing. One must know that ordinary people might not even be able to hold on for more than 10 minutes, and all the actors had to take drugs. But they were still straight, which was convenient for filming. And most importantly, the person had to be replaced.